When Adolf Hitler shot himself in the Führer bunker on April 30th, 1945, the Nazi regime died with him. But the story of his family did not end there. Far from it. While Hitler himself became the most infamous figure of the 20th century, the lives of his surviving relatives after the war tell a quieter, yet equally fascinating story. One marked by shame, secrecy, and in some cases, an intentional disappearance from public life. To understand what became of them, we first need to understand who they were. Adolf Hitler was born in 1889 to Alois Hitler and Clara Pölzl. The family tree was tangled even before the world knew his name. His father, Alois, had been born out of wedlock to Maria Anna Schicklgruber, and only later took the surname Hitler, a variation of Heidler. Hitler had several half-siblings and full siblings, though many died young. By the end of World War II, the only close relatives still alive were his half-sister Angela, his half-brother Alois Jr., his full sister Paula, and the children of Angela and Alois Jr. What happened to them after 1945 is a mixture of confirmed history and guarded privacy. Let's start with Paula Hitler, Adolf's youngest sister and the only full sibling to survive the war. Born in 1896, Paula led a quiet, unremarkable life compared to her brother. She worked as a secretary before and during the war, reportedly under the name Paula Wolf, using Hitler's favorite pseudonym Wolf. She rarely saw her brother in person, but she benefited financially from him, receiving an allowance from the Nazi Party during his reign. When the war ended, Paula was arrested by American forces in May 1945 and interrogated. She denied any deep political involvement and claimed she had little contact with Adolf. Her interrogation records show she described her brother as a good brother, but a completely different person in politics. After her release, she lived in Vienna, surviving quietly under her maiden name until her death in 1960, at age 64. She never married, never had children, and remained fiercely private, refusing interviews until near the end of her life. In one of her final recorded comments, she admitted she could not reconcile the brother she knew with the dictator the world saw. Now to Angela Hitler, Adolf's older half-sister. Angela was born in 1883 to Alois Hitler and his second wife, Franziska Matzelsberger. She was much older than Adolf and acted as something of a maternal figure after their mother Clara died. In the 1920s, Angela became the housekeeper at Hitler's mountain retreat in Berchtesgaden, the Berghof. Her daughter, Gaily Raubel, famously lived there as well, until her mysterious and controversial death in 1931, which fueled rumors about an inappropriate relationship with Hitler. Angela remained loyal to Adolf during the Nazi years, but at some point in the late 1930s, a rift developed between them, possibly due to her disapproval of Eva Braun. After the war, Angela largely avoided public attention. She survived the conflict and died in 1949 at the age of 66 in Hanover, Germany. Like Paula, she was never charged with war crimes, but her close association with Adolf meant she spent the last years of her life in quiet obscurity. Angela's surviving children faced an even stranger path. Her son, Leo Roebel Jr., was Hitler's half-nephew. Born in 1906, Leo served as an officer in the Luftwaffe during the war. In 1943, he was captured by Soviet forces during the Battle of Stalingrad. The Soviets actually considered using him as a bargaining chip in a prisoner exchange for Joseph Stalin's own captured son, Yakov Djugashvili. But Yakov died in captivity before such a trade could happen. Leo was eventually released in 1955, a full decade after the war, and lived out his life in Austria as a schoolteacher and engineer. He rarely spoke about his infamous uncle and died in 1977. Angela's daughter, Elfriede Raubal, survived the war, married, and lived a relatively quiet life in Germany until her death in 1993. She too avoided public attention, and little is known about her opinions on her uncle. Now we move to the other side of the family, Adolf Hitler's half-brother, Alois Hitler Jr. Born in 1882 to Alois Sr. and his first wife, Alois Jr. had a strained relationship with his father and a distant one with Adolf. He lived in Ireland and England for a time, marrying an Irish woman named Bridget Dowling. The couple had a son in 1911, William Patrick Hitler. Alois Jr. eventually abandoned Bridget and returned to Germany, starting another family. By the time the war began, he was living quietly in Hamburg. After Germany's defeat, He was arrested by Allied forces, but like most of Hitler's immediate relatives, he was never charged with crimes. He died in 1956. Now, William Patrick Hitler. Of all Hitler's relatives, William's post-war story is perhaps the most unusual. Born in Liverpool, England, William travelled to Germany in the 1930s to try to leverage his connection to Adolf for a job. For a time, he worked at a bank and in car sales, but he grew dissatisfied. When Hitler refused to give him a better position, William threatened to reveal embarrassing family details to the press. The two fell out bitterly, and William left Germany in 1939, returning to Britain briefly before moving to the United States. In America, William Patrick gave public lectures about his uncle and even wrote a sensational magazine article titled, "Why I Hate My Uncle." When the United States entered the war, William petitioned President Franklin D. Roosevelt for permission to serve in the US Navy, and he got it. He served as a hospital corpsman from 1944 to 1947, earning a Purple Heart. After the war, William Patrick Hitler changed his name to William Patrick Stewart Houston and vanished from public life. He settled in Long Island, New York, married a German-born woman named Phyllis, and had 4 sons. He ran a small medical laboratory and refused all interviews until his death in 1987. What makes William's story especially intriguing is that his sons, Alexander, Louis, Brian, and Howard, reportedly made a pact never to have children, effectively ending Hitler's direct bloodline. While this pact has been the subject of media speculation, the fact remains, none of them have children to this day. Alois Jr.'s second family also produced another half-nephew, Heinz Hitler. Born in 1920, Heinz was a devoted Nazi and served in the Wehrmacht. He was captured by Soviet forces in 1942 and died under interrogation at the age of just 21. His death left no descendants. And then there is the matter of more distant relatives. Some of Hitler's cousins and extended family members emigrated to the United States and Austria, changing their names to avoid recognition. A few spoke openly after the war, but most remained silent, not wanting to be forever associated with the dictator. One particularly interesting figure is Brigitte Dowling Hitler, William Patrick's mother. After her husband Alois Jr. abandoned her, she stayed in England, raising William alone. She wrote a memoir claiming that Adolf had once stayed with them in Liverpool between 1912 and 1913, a claim historians dispute since evidence suggests Hitler never left Austria during those years. Brigitte died in 1969, still insisting her story was true. So, by the 1960s, what was left of Hitler's family? The surviving siblings were gone. Paula, Angela, and Alois Jr. had all died. The next generation had scattered, changed names, or deliberately vanished from public view. Most wanted nothing to do with their uncle's legacy, and some actively worked to erase it. Even today, the last living close relatives of Adolf Hitler remain in obscurity. The Stewart Houston brothers, William Patrick's sons, have avoided interviews for decades. They live quietly in New York State, declining all requests to talk about their lineage. Public records confirm their existence, but they guard their privacy fiercely. In the end, what happened to Hitler's family after World War II is a story of survival without triumph. There were no memoirs from siblings seeking to justify him, no public claims to his legacy. Instead, there was silence, a retreat into anonymity. It's as though the family collectively understood that the Hitler name could never again be spoken without infamy. The truth is, the bloodline of Adolf Hitler will likely end in the 21st century. If the reports are true, his last close relatives have chosen to let it die. A decision perhaps born from shame, from morality, or from a desire for peace. What's left is not the continuation of a dynasty, but the slow fading of a family into history. And maybe, given what the world endured under the name Hitler, that is exactly how it should end. Well, that's it. If you like these sorts of videos, make sure to subscribe, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to click the like button.